Ghost towns in the US are plentiful, and when you've got Alabama ghosts, Florida creatures, and more haunting you, they may be worth learning about. Cahawba was actually Alabama's first state capital, but it was abandoned after just 46 years. Since it's located on the confluence of the Cahawba and Alabama rivers, flooding regularly overtook the town, destroying buildings and slowly turning it back into wilderness. Economic trouble also took its toll, first as the state legislature was moved to Selma, and later from the Civil War. One famous event during Cahawba's Civil War era was the arrival of the town's first apparition, the will-o-wisp known as the Peg's Ghost. In 1862, on a moonlit night, a young couple was walking behind Colonel C.C. Peg's home, ambling about the thick stand of cedars, when a glowing ball of white light suddenly appeared before them. Flashing from side to side a few feet above the path, the apparition moved so close that they could almost touch it. Then it quickly disappeared in the undergrowth, only to reappear beside them moments later. When the gentleman tried once again to touch the object, it disappeared, much like the town itself was soon fated to vanish. One cannot help but wonder about the historical circumstances and coincidences that surround the ghost story. The home of the colonel, the leader of the 5th Alabama Regiment, was the social center of the town during this time. The large grounds with their forests of cedars, magnolia trees, pines, scented flowers, and fountains describe the ideal retreat for lovers, desperate to escape the harsh realities of the time. The home was a place to court and to forget, but significantly it was the colonel that would return home to recruit more men for his, company. So was the young man in the story a recruit? The new cemetery at Cahawba is known as the most haunted location within the park. Daytime visitors occasionally come to the visitor center to warn the staff they hear young voices laughing and playing in the woods surrounding the cemetery. Knowing that the staff locks the gates to the park at 5, they're afraid that the playing humans are going to be locked in overnight. The park staff, including the night security guard, used to hunt for the folks who belonged to the mysterious voices, but they never found any living humans in the woods near the cemetery. Spooky. Today, the abandoned city functions as a historical and archaeological site, and it's one of the oldest historic towns that's still kind of standing. Hidden deep within the woods in Flagler County sits the crumbling ruins of a once thriving sugar mill and plantation. Named one of the spookiest ghost towns in America by Country Living magazine, Bulowville is an eerie reminder of the area's unpleasant past, one marred by forced labor and the removal of locals against their will. Today, the site of the former plantation is dead silent, minus the occasional bird warbling and the rustling of leaves in the wind, and ghosty. But back in the early 1800s, it hummed with life. Folks toiled in the Florida heat, performing the grueling work of cutting and boiling sugarcane and tending to fields of cotton, rice, and indigo. Others worked inside, cooking and cleaning. An 1830 census notes that 193 staff were present on the plantation. Today, though, ruins and rumors surround this entire place, which is now a historic state park, along with being a ghost town. Fragments of the sugar mill still stand, allowing visitors a peek at the past, but it's the unseen that has earned the area its spooky title. Some claim the Seminoles cursed this plantation and their spirits lurk around the park. Many claim to have seen orbs of light and shadowy figures in the trees. Others speak of unnaturally cold spots during the scorching summer heat. For more than 400 years, the Fairchild Oak has silently observed the events in the area, serving as a noble guard of the area's magnificent environment. Nearly 2 centuries ago, in 1836, the plantation was actually destroyed, but still, the oak stands strong. Local legend has it that this majestic oak tree was the site of 2 deaths. The first was that of James Ormond II, who lived in a house a stone's throw from the tree and whose body was found underneath it. Cause of death unknown. The second death, shrouded in even more mystery. Norman Harwood, who purchased the property around 1880, is remembered as a hulking man. Some stories portray him as a cattle farmer, while others cite him as a dry goods businessman. Most accounts say Harwood was deep over his head in debt. It's unclear what happened, but legend suggests that Harwood, buried in economic turmoil, took his own life under the tree, and his spirit is still there to this day. A boomtown founded on the back of a gold mine, a center of gambling and other vices before the big bust and subsequent ghost town status. We've heard this story before, and now it's a full-on ghost town. A town like this is bound to attract its fair share of ghosts, if for no other reason than it was built up and abandoned in the gold chaos that swept the country back in the early 1900s. The legend of Mona Bell is one of the saddest and most prevailing stories in the entire area. The tragic Miss Bell was killed in 1908, allegedly killed by Fred Skinner, with whom she had a torrid love affair and fled to Rhyolite with. As the story goes, Miss Bell was already married when she met the charming Fred and went with him, perhaps in search of riches. Bell and Fred walked on the wild side, with Fred earning his money gambling and Bell engaging in the world's oldest profession to make her monies. Allegedly, the problem was that she got too much attention from the local men. Gossip and jealousy ran rampant, but that was just the beginning of this duo's problems. The gold was running out, People began to flee. These two held on until the end, and then things totally soured between them. As the story goes, they clashed over money, and Fred pulled a firearm on his partner in crime. Belle's choice in work caused problems when it came to where she should be buried. Allegedly, she's buried outside the town, but other stories say that her body went back to her hometown in Nebraska. What we do know is that the cursed gravesite, where Mona Bell may or may not lie, is a hotbed of hauntings. Various recordings have been picked up there, including EVPs that say, "This is the end of us, and come lie with us." Is it a spine-tingling siren song from beyond the grave? We might never know. The historic town of Thurmond, located in the heart of the New River Gorge, was established by Captain William D. Thurmond in the 1880s. Almost 3 decades later, the town was incorporated. The captain's vision for the 73 acres of land bordering the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad line was to serve the miners working in the area, and the coal mine, and to become a prosperous community for the workers and their families. During its heyday in the 1920s, Thurmond had more coal running through it than Cincinnati, Ohio, and was a flourishing town with a number of businesses and facilities for the railway. Sadly, after a series of setbacks, Thurmond soon went from boom to bust. The train depot has been restored to its former glory and now houses the National Park Service Visitors Center. Stories of many travelers meeting an unsightly end in front of the train depot are pretty numerous. One psychic medium told a story about a person who was thrown from the second-story balcony, leading into investigations. Multiple groups had flashlight communication in the exact location that the medium had pointed to. Also, on more than one occasion, items have been pushed off of the second-story balcony. Park rangers have told stories of locking the building up tight, only to come back and find all doors open, along with every water faucet in the building turned on. The Erskine Pugh House sits on the hill behind Commercial Row and was most recently the home of Erskine and Jackie Pugh, who ran the Baker's Club restaurant in the 1980s. Experts have had some interesting spirit box communication on the porch and have even heard something banging inside the building. One afternoon, they were doing a tour with a psychic medium that told them there was a lady wearing a red dress in the window of the house watching the group. Upon returning home, the medium had felt an immense pull of spiritual energy and has claimed that she has never experienced spiritual energy like she had there. She noted that the lady in the red dress spoke to her later that night, expressing a lot of displeasure for the visit. The medium warned visitors about the lady in the red dress and refused to ever return to Thurmond ever again. And finally for today, Calico is an Old West mining town that's been around since 1881. Nestled in the Mojave Desert, with around 500 silver mines in the area, it took just 2 years for the town's population to reach 1,200 back in the 1880s. By 1890, it was home to about 3,500 people. However, the dream ended almost as quickly as it began, when the Silver Purchase Act of 1890 pushed down silver prices, and by 1900, Calico was abandoned entirely. It has remained so ever since, despite several attempts to rejuvenate the place. However, just because the living have abandoned Calico doesn't mean that it is uninhabited. Over the years, it has built up a reputation as one of the most haunted places in California, if not the entire United States. One of the most commonly spotted entities haunting Calico Ghost Town is said to be a woman by the name of Lucy Lane. History suggests that she ran Calico's general store alongside her husband, John Robert Lane, and she was well into her 90s when she finally passed. And it seems only natural that she would want to stick around the town where she lived and died. Visitors to Calico have frequently reported seeing Lucy walking between what was once her home and the general store. She is easily recognizable by her attire, the beautiful black lace dress in which she was buried. Well, that's it folks, I've been Alexa, your resident ookie spooky girly. See ya!